Hello, hello. How is everyone? Hopefully you've been having a reasonable Wednesday. Sorry for the 5-minute delay. I think we're up and running now. As always, I'm going to leave you guys with this current puzzle position as a warm-up to get us a little bit on the mindset. I'll make sure everything is working in the technical level. Puzzle position as a warm-up to get us a little bit... Okay, no delay. A little bit. Let's mute this. I'll make sure everything. There we go. Now let's test, because sometimes this falls asleep. And there we go. It's working. Nice to see. Now, you may notice that this puzzle is maybe not as easy as the ones that we've had previously. Specifically the ones that, I don't know, the last 3 streams, for instance, they were not as difficult. And yeah, part of that is that, I don't know, Lichess likes to vary it from time to time. And I used to think that it was only for the Sunday puzzles, but it happens like they randomly make it difficult. This one, we quickly realized that king takes e8 is not the answer. Why? Because then white can go king e3, and we're gonna lose this pawn whatever happens. Like, we can't defend it. Like, this is running into white promoting their own pawn. This bishop has to keep an eye on this pawn, so this pawn is essentially lost after king takes e8, king e3, and that's a drawn endgame. So it has to be a little bit more brutal than that, a little bit more forceful. And there is only one move that kind of translates to that, and that is d2. That happens to be the answer. So it's kind of method of elimination. Obviously we're not going to take with the bishop. Taking with the king is insufficient. So it has to be d2. And after a while we also realized, well, okay, d2 is keeping an eye on the e1 square, and thanks to this bishop, thanks to white's own piece, rook d8 is impossible. Sorry, insufficient, I should say. It's possible, but it's allowing this. So a8 queen is what the engine is, or the puzzle is giving us. We're simply going to take this, and we're going to promote, and we have a winning position. So let's join the arena, the daily rapid arena. We're a little bit late, so let's try to catch up with Juan Bestagon, Asas, and everyone else. If you guys have any questions at any moment, please shoot them. And only that, if you guys are noticing something weird with the stream, specifically the chat and the audio, the microphone, please let me know as well. This is taking ages to give us a game. There we go. We're playing its Provo pawn. So let's see, what should we play? I think we're going to stick to our Philidor repertoire just to keep it consistent. So white goes for e4, one of the most popular moves. The other one obviously being d4. We're going to respond with d6. This is aiming for a Philidor, but against d4 it would be aiming for some sort of King's Indian. So knight c3 is played. I'm going to play e5. And they go f4, interesting. So f4 is a unusual line, but a very interesting one regardless. I'm going to play knight c6. Simply developing pieces. White is going to argue that with this pawn on f4, now knight f3 is even in a better position, because, okay, very often this pawn on f2, you wish you could open things up with f4, so that's why white plays f4, obviously before knight f3. And let's think about this. So there's some pressure against e5, but we're protecting that pretty well. And it's a little bit of a shame that we can't put our bishop on c5 anymore. This is one of the ways to punish f4 moves of the like of f4, because it weakens the king side greatly. Now, it's not the end of the world. We have bishop g4. We have knight f6 as well, which is a very natural move. We have g6, bishop g7. I think I'm going to play bishop g4. It's a very natural move. It's pinning the knight, introducing knight d4 into the equation. And sometimes I'm even willing to give up the bishop pair. Bishop takes f3, queen takes f3 for the sake of getting knight d4 ideas. So bishop c4 is allowing those bishop takes f3, knight d4 ideas. I can also go knight d4 right away. And actually this one I like. Unless I'm blundering some sort of takes, and knight g5. Which I don't think I am. Because knight d4, let's calculate this. We have to be a little bit aware of these. It's a typical motive. Bishop c4 is a very offensive move. It introduces bishop takes f7. And I have to keep an eye on that. So knight d4. First things first, knight takes e5. I can take on d1, and even after bishop takes f7, king e7. Oh, there's the famous knight d5 mate. So we have to be careful. Knight d4, knight takes e5. Maybe a problem. Wow, we got very interesting very quickly. That's good news. Knight d4, knight takes e5. That's the importance of keeping an eye on the opponent's resources. So if we simply take, we're losing this, but then we have knight takes c2 check, and God knows what's going on. Okay, we could spend here 1,000 years, but I think I'm gonna choose. That's difficult. I was gonna go bishop takes f3, but against queen takes f3, knight d4. I think queen d1 is absolutely fine. I think I'm gonna go e takes f4, and the reason is that now against bishop takes f7 or knight e5 ideas, I always have knight takes e5 protecting my bishop on g4. The castle, obviously bishop takes f7, king takes f7, knight g5, queen takes g5 would have protected my bishop too, so that wouldn't have been a problem. And now once again we have a question to answer. So knight d4 is once again in the air. This time knight e5 is, I think, slightly different just because of there's d takes e5, queen takes g4, and we get to support this f4 pawn and play something like c6, and I don't think white has enough compensation for the pawn. I'm going to repeat that very quickly. So if we go knight d4 with the idea of takes and bishop takes d1, obviously, trying to exploit this pin, and to take on f3 so white is forced to take with the pawn, that would be extremely beneficial because it would be damaging the king. That's the idea of knight d4, but then we're trying some fireworky stuff with knight e5. Knight e5 has the trap of, it's not a queen sacrifice, it's a king sacrifice. I'm sacrificing my king, I would be losing in that position. So knight d4, knight e5, I would have to take, after which white can take, but then I have c6, and I have an extra pawn, and it's very difficult for white to get it back. In previous versions, white was taking a pawn on e5, so it was a little bit more unclear before I took on f4. But now that I took on f4, things are different. I'm gonna go for knight d4. Oh, wait a second. Knight d4, I forgot to calculate. Bishop takes f7, king takes f7, and knight e5, but I think I simply take, and I should be okay. Actually, I'm more than okay. I'm up a piece. Knight d4, take a look at this. Bishop f7, king f7, knight e5. By the way, knight g5 once again is simply running into queen takes g5. So knight e5, check, d takes e5, queen takes g4. And white has two minor pieces, I have three. So I should be winning there. I'm gonna go for knight d4, trying to provoke bishop e2, after which I get rid of this very powerful bishop, very annoying bishop on c4. Let's see what our opponent plays. This is a very sharp position. It either works for black or not. Obviously, moves like knight d4 are very dangerous. Black has no development in the king side. The king is still in the middle. I should be really, really worried about that. But after calculating, I think I can get away with this. It's a very ambitious move, knight d4. But I think I can get away with it. And my opponent allows knight takes f3, so I think this is the spirit, d3. I'm going to... Should I take with the bishop or with the knight? I think it doesn't matter that much. I think I'm going to take with the knight, just because For instance, g6, h3, bishop h3, rook e1, queen g5 would be potentially winning. I mean, that's not entirely the reason why I go for this. It's also the fact that after, for instance, bishop takes f3, rook takes f3, I would have to take the rook if I wanted to make the most of that, right? But after knight takes f3, rook takes f3, I get to keep the tension because the bishop is pinning the rook to the queen. So now bishop e6, bishop h3. I think I'm going to choose bishop h3 because it gains a tempo. Chess is a lot about keeping things going, being quick, being fast. Speed. That's the word. I'm up a pawn, but I'm down development in development. However, no, I'm not only up a pawn, I'm also... My opponent's king is reasonably weakened. But then white has a little bit more center. Interesting position. I think it's very dependent on tactics. Now, probably what my opponent is thinking is, can I simply sacrifice everything? Bishop takes f4, getting back their pawn, but losing the exchange. Okay, I'm not sure. Bishop takes f4, bishop takes f1, queen takes f1. I think white probably has a reasonable compensation, but I'm not sure if full compensation. I mean, obviously I'm super underdeveloped. Look at this. I mean, I have no pieces out. Bishop takes f4, bishop takes f1, queen takes f1. I wouldn't be surprised if it was true that white has enough compensation, but at the same time, I think I can go knight f6, bishop e7, and castle short side pretty quickly. I can also go queen d7, castle queen side. Not sure if I want that though. Feels like white can completely murder me in the queen side, knight b5, knight takes a7. So bishop takes f4, bishop takes f1, queen takes f1. I'm probably gonna go knight f6, bishop e7. Hello, Johnny. I didn't know you spoke Spanish. You probably use the translator. Hello, Fiona. Good. Nice watch, by the way. Thank you. Do you mean nice watch as in nice watching the stream, or? Yeah, I'm joking. Rook f2 makes sense. So white decides to go for the materialistic approach. Probably the objectively better one. I mean, I'm criticizing white for going for the materialistic approach, but I'm about to play a very materialistic move myself. And that is g5. Now I have a good excuse. The excuse being, it's not only keeping the pawn, it's not for the pawn's sake. It's also the fact that the bishop on c1 is going to be pretty bad. So the bishop on c1 is now essentially crashing against this structure. Very little pawn chain. I'm also introducing bishop g7, bishop d4 ideas. Bishop g7, d4 is what I'm expecting white to go for. And you know, if I have enough time... Wow, okay, I didn't see this. What's the idea? There's no idea. Okay, this is simply a bishop. I don't see anything. I don't understand. I mean, I appreciate the intentions behind such a move. This is exactly what white should be calculating, but I don't think it works in this case. Yeah, this was a little bit of a... like out of nowhere. Okay, simply I'm going to castle manually now. It's all about consolidating. White probably wants to sacrifice something on f4, but they could have done that before, like without sacrificing here. They could have gone 92 right away. We're gonna take a look at that in the post-mortem. Ah, no respondí tu pregunta. It wasn't that late. I think it was 5 minutes late. Or maybe there's been a change of time in some of our countries. Either yours or mine. Okay, I'm going to go for knight e7, knight g6. I think the knight on g6 is well placed. Although knight f6 is very natural as well. But I'm gonna go knight e7, knight g6. I'm anticipating sacrifices against f4, and in a more dreamy type of, from a more dreamy perspective, or in a more dreamy note, I could potentially aim for knight h4, but that's long term. Now queen b3, I'm gonna block with the bishop. The ideal move against such a check. So your queen b3 is essentially a threat against my king, obviously. So I create a counter threat against white's queen. They go c4, very anti-positional move. Now there's a massive hole on d4, and I'm immediately going to exploit this with knight c6. Yeah, I didn't like this from white. Now queen takes b7, knight d4. I'm more than happy to give a little bit of material back for the sake of some weak squares and some development. And I think this is looking pretty good. Okay, yeah. Well, that's interesting because I thought time schedules and time zones were always in 1 hour intervals. But it turns out that some countries are also a couple of minutes. That's why you're here, Jenny. Hopefully you've been well. Not too busy with school and stuff. Or work already. Okay, queen takes b7. So obviously knight d4 is the kind of natural move. I'm just considering rook b8 and knight a5. Kind of in a very ambitious way. That's kind of like those moves are looking for something more than a weak square, but it turns out that it's nothing. Rook b8, queen takes c6. I think the queen is escaping. And knight a5, queen b4 or queen b5 seems sufficient. Maybe knight b4 would have been interesting. But okay, that's very impractical. Like knight d4 is, at the very least, centralizing a knight, looking to exchange pieces. If I get to exchange these pieces, the bishop on c1 is left as an even weaker piece. Very often, actually, when you're following Capablanca's principle of exchanging the pieces that don't affect your advantage, the weakness becomes weaker, and you're therefore, I mean, as a result, logically, your advantage also increases. It kind of extenuates, maybe that's the word. It highlights white's disadvantages, and it strengthens your advantage. Hope all of that made sense. If it didn't, well, pretty understandable actually. That was horrible. Horribly explained. But okay, let's move on. Knight takes f4. So my opponent is essentially saying, look, I'm in a worse position. I might as well go down in flames. I might as well try something. And I completely understand this. So I like rook b8. I think we should start here. I like rook b8 because it's bringing one more piece into the game, into the attack. It's also kind of enticing, provoking queen takes a7, after which I think I have knight c6, bishop d4 ideas. I also have rook takes b2, knight takes f3 check, followed by bishop takes b2, but okay. Maybe that's a little bit unnecessary. I'm going to quote Korchnoi yet again. I think this is like the third or fourth time I've done this in the last week. But that's not going to stop me. So Korchnoi... Okay, you know what? I'm going to go the old way. I'm going to go rook a8. Queen b7 and queen b8. And this is kind of the resigning, kind of provoking white for the resignation button, because, yeah, you're down 1,000 pieces and exchanging queens is the end of the story. But okay, finishing what I was going to say with Korchnoi. He said, this is the first and the last time you win against me. The very first and the very last. Okay, I'm joking. Not everyone is gonna get that reference though. Now, Korchnoi used to say, my position is so good that it's difficult to come up with a move. He famously, and I quote, said, I can play slightly worse positions, equal positions, but winning positions? That I can't do. Because there's so many options, there's so many tempting moves. You end up burning the clock or something of that sort. Or over relaxing. Okay, 92 is a little small tactic. A small tactic, winning the exchange. So now we're a little bit more winning than before. I'm going to do something similar with rook g8. I'm going to give a check here. Kind of only move is king h1. King f1 runs into bishop h3. And this is bad for two reasons. The most important one is that it's losing the exchange, but secondly, that's also allowing me to come in with my own rook. And now my opponent resigns. Thank you for the game, Probo Pawn. Let's analyze that for not too long. So the opening was very interesting. Up to this point, everything is decent. After we go knight c6, knight f3, we go for bishop g4. The engine claims that we should have played e takes f4, but I was a little bit scared against d4. But now we get the engine being the engine. The engine says g5, and you're simply going to keep this pawn, and white doesn't have enough compensation. However, in human chess, in the real world, in practical terms, this is actually pretty difficult. I don't know, bishop c4, like you go g4, and I don't know, even things like bishop takes f4 look very scary. Like we have no development. But okay, like this is where the engine once again excels. Like the engine says knight takes d4, comes with a tempo, and you're defending like a computer. But okay, bishop g4 is very human. And bishop c4 is wrong already because of knight d4. Now we took on... So we were right by calculating knight d4, but we were wrong by not ultimately going for it. So knight d4, bishop takes f7, king takes f7. Oh, wait a second. This is not what we calculated. We calculated knight takes e5. Yeah, bishop takes f7 doesn't work. And here, according to the engine, we have d takes e5, queen takes g4. And I knew it. I knew the engine would go for this. Knight takes e2, and... you know, I'm not gonna punish myself too much for this. It's very engine-like. But I'll tell you what I missed. King d1, I missed that I don't go for the rook. I actually win the queen. Yeah, I missed that. I'm a complete something. So, okay. Fair enough. Knight d4 would have been strong here. E takes e4 allows white to equalize with d4. But okay, white is the one equalizing and black is the one trying to win it. We already kind of won in the opening. And I don't understand why d4 is so strong. Can't we go bishop takes f3 and knight takes d4? Well, apparently white has queen f2 in this version. And after knight e6, they can take on f4. Fair enough. So they go castle short side, but now we have knight d4, and this is one of the ways to punish white. The other one being g5 directly, but knight d4 is more than enough. And d3 is already giving black a big advantage. A little bit more resilient would have been bishop e2. But d3 we go takes, bishop h3. Already the engine is saying, white, you should sacrifice the exchange, but it's not sufficient. It's not enough compensation for the exchange. Although it does look like white has more central presence and more activity, definitely. Black can play g6, bishop g7, and develop this way. I was going to play knight f6, bishop e7. Which also seems to be okay. But rook f2 is played, and now I get g5 in a much better version than having played it here. So, yeah. After this, it was pretty difficult, and my opponent went a little bit too crazy on f7. And after this, we converted successfully. Thank you for the game. I'm going to see if I can get 2 more games in, because that took a while. Knight takes f3 would be better. Knight takes f3. Instead of knight e2, you mean? Well, then, but like knight takes f3, rook takes f3, bishop takes e1, there's bishop e5. So, like, my king is in the f file. Let's play e4. Wow, pre-move e6. Let's play f4. Let's say they pre-move more. f4 is a very venomous sideline. And if you play... if you follow the... Sorry, what am I doing? If you follow the main repertoire that we've been playing with the black pieces, d4, d6, c4, e5, knight f3, oh sorry, e4, those lines have some similarity with the French. So it's actually pretty interesting. We can even keep things consistent in a repertoric level, in an opening level, I should say, maybe, by playing f4 against the French. I mean, obviously, if we truly wanted to keep things consistent, also we can simply go d3. That's why people recommend going for, or working hard in your repertoire with the black pieces first, and then worst case scenario with the white pieces, you can simply, yeah, play whatever you play with the black pieces, but in a much better version, given that you have an extra tempo. Now let's see who's challenging us. Okay, not someone I expected. Usually it's Cheetah 101 or something like that. My opponent's having a deep think here, as I think anyone should, because f4 is a rare line. If you're surprised in the opening, you should take your time. The thing you should not do is make a move instantly in order to kind of bluff your opponent into thinking that you know the line. So we're going to advance now. They go c5. This is all very standard. I'm going to go knight f3. And you may notice that if I had a pawn on d4 and like I get c3, that would be more kind of similar to the advanced French. However, I do have a pawn on f4, and that makes things some things a little bit more different. Having a pawn on f4 rather than on f2. It has advantages and disadvantages, as most things in life and in chess. And another advantage of this line is that by delaying d4, we get to prepare knight a3, knight c2, and then d4. If you go d4 immediately, there's black could take, and then take on a3, which takes 2 different types of variations. So now that we've successfully taken the knight to c2, I think d4 is much better supported. So we can go for d4, takes. And from a very reductionist kind of comment, or from a very reductionist point of view, we're playing against the bishop on c8. Not only that, but we're going to potentially put our bishop on d3, castle the short side, and see what happens. Now, this last move changes things. I'm going to read that later, Jen, if that's okay. But if you're saying goodbye, see you around. F5 is closing everything off to be solid. So black is already accepting that white is going to be better in the long term. Because it's not as if black was kind of creating tension maybe against d5. It's simply closing things off. Or maybe black thinks that this is... or black made the mistake of thinking that I'm forced to take, which happens very often. Like you make a move that allows en passant, and like there's something in us humans that kind of think, well, en passant is probably forced here. But not because en passant is possible, we have to go for it. It's kind of a human thing. I'm not sure how to explain why this happens, but whenever we see en passant, we get excited as chess players. Either way. So what are we going to play against f5? Well, taking here would be good, I think, for black. Well, I'm not sure. I have to see. I'm very happy that knight f5 is no longer possible. I can tell you that. This knight on h6 all of a sudden could be experiencing some existential crisis. So now the knight is heading to f7 or g4. I don't see too much future in those moves. Secondly, I'm debating, well, if I'm going to keep things as they are in the center, then what should I do? Well, a useful move, right? Which useful move? Bishop d3 seems to be allowing knight b4, and if black gets to trade some pieces, then it's a little bit annoying. However, as soon as I said that, sorry, I realized that I can take and play bishop d2. And I get to, like, I'm still slightly better in the sense of space advantage. And because black's knight are like the knight on h6 and the bishop on c8 are the main reason why my position is better. Space, the knight on h6, and the bishop on c8, three things are making my position slightly better. This is what I think. Is it true? Well, we will see in the post-mortem. So they do go for knight b4. I'm going to take. I could also, I guess, keep the tension, but like if I castle, knight takes e3 is a little bit annoying. So I'm going to take. Knight takes b4, bishop takes b4. And once again, I have the option of playing something like king f2. Like, I don't have to trade more pieces. And technically, this bishop on b4 allows me to go a3, b4 with tempo. But it's hard to say. It's very hard to say. Oh, it's a tough one, this one. It's a tough one. I'm going to play bishop d2 because it seems very natural, and I don't think it's going to affect our advantage for the reasons I already said. Like the knight on h6, the bishop on c8, and we have space advantage. That should, yeah. And also, okay, I lagged horribly. There we go. Also, if I go king f2, I think black can go a5. So it's not that easy to go for a3, b4, which is the whole point of not trading pieces. Or one very appealing point towards that. A very appealing argument. Okay, queen a5. So I'm going to play a3 to take as a mistake. We're both actually hoping that the other one is going to take, right? Like bishop takes d2 would have been helping me, helping my queen to develop. So they play queen a5, hoping that I take, but then I double down. I play a3 and I say you take. So they take. But now my opponent is probably saying, well, at least I got to trade queen. So I traded a couple of pieces, and that kind of mitigates a little bit of the problem of the space. So one of the principles you should follow when you're struggling in space, when you're with the black pieces in this case, is trading pieces. Now, I'm just thinking about this. While I think that black has traded some pieces, I think that they still have to answer some questions with a revolving arrow. Like I've said it like 1,000 times by now, but revolving around the knight on h6 and the bishop on d7, shalala. Okay, so h3 is one of the moves that I am considering now. Why? Well, obviously I would like to do something more exciting, like rook hc1, but then knight g4, knight f2, knight e4. And if that knight comes alive, I will be no longer that much better. Another question is what to do with my pawns in the queen side. Usually you want to go a3, b4, but that's just making this bishop better. So maybe I can put them in this way, b3, a4, to kind of neutralize that bishop. But okay, first things first. I think I'm going to stop knight g4. I'm not in any rush of rook hc1. Maybe I should have started with b3. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, rook ac8, very logical. I think rook hc1 is logical too. Very often in these positions, you want to trade a pair of rooks. So I'm going to go rook hc1. I mean, I could also trade both of the rooks because my king is coming in. I'm not sure. I am not sure. Okay, I'm gonna go b3. It's a useful move. I'm gonna keep things as they are. I'm claiming that if my opponent allows me, I'm gonna go a4. This is very creative. I was gonna say I'm gonna go a4 and then potentially even bishop b5 ideas. But okay, things have changed. Knight f7 is looking for knight d8, knight c6, which makes sense. So before we go a4 like an impulsive person, we have to think. Now g4 has also been unlocked. And for example, after g6, we can go g5, and h4 becomes a whole new idea. So, but now takes. I was actually very excited about takes. That's why I rejected it quickly. But it turns out, yeah, it does look very appealing. But there's knight h6 maybe. Although there's potentially g5. Okay, that looks good. I'm gonna go for g4. If the h file opens up, only I can be better. Now g6, I'm definitely gonna... No, I'm not gonna break the tension. I think that helps only black. Both after g or e. Like, I don't see that clear. So I'm gonna advance this pawn. I don't want black to take, because then f4 would become a weakness. You're gonna say, David, if you were scared of black taking, why wouldn't you be scared in this position? Well, once again, takes. It's tactical reasons. Like, we're attacking h7 and black is not in time to exploit f4. For example, g6, f5 already. The pawn sacrifice could potentially be detrimental. Pretty clever word. So they go knight d8, knight c6. Now let's think about this. What is black threatening? Okay, knight c6, but okay, that's not threatening the pawn. We have a we can keep an eye on that, or we're already keeping an eye on that. So let's say h4, knight c6, and let's say like we waste another move and black gets knight a5. Well, we can go rook a b1, for instance, or even bishop c2 maybe. My point being, I think my plan of going h4, h5 is much more serious than black's plan of knight c6 and counterplaying the queen side. So I'm gonna go h4, h takes g6, g takes h7 check, if allowed. Now obviously I'm half joking here, but I'm definitely gonna go h5. So it turns out that we were lagging a little bit. Sorry if you guys lost me there for a second. Knight c6, I'm going to continue with h5, and they go king g7. Okay, so a mistake that many people would make here is to take. To take is a mistake. You have to keep the tension. So I'm going to increase the pressure. I'm going to increase the pressure with rook h2. And what this is doing is threatening to go rook h1, but now I'm realizing this is not easy. We're making progress, but it's not easy. It was never easy. Nobody said it was easy. Maybe we can go h6 and it's a complete nightmare. I think I'm gonna go for that actually. And I'm kind of going to put my rook back in the c file where it belongs. Yeah, maybe I should have kept the tension a little bit longer. It's okay. I'm going to put a rook on b1. We're going to keep these two pawns, keeping an eye on these key squares. All of these squares are key. If one of those squares was a little bit weaker than it is currently, like for example, if I push b4, then knight c4, or a4, maybe knight c6, knight b4. So I have to be careful. Okay, they go b5, very reasonable. Where do I want my knight? I think I want my knight on, ultimately, d3. So I'm going to go knight e1. Now that the pawn on d4 is not attacked, they can go knight c6, but then I'm going to go either king e3 or knight c2. And I do know that I said I want my knight on d3, but I think it's unfortunately not practical to do that. For example, if I move my bishop, then rook c2 after doubling up in the c file becomes an idea. And I like the fact that I like the fact that this bishop is keeping an eye on the knight on c2. For instance, after rook f hc8, I get a chance of playing rook hc1, rook c3, and for instance, knight a1. So I'm going to play this. We're rushing through our moves now, but we're going to go through them in the post-mortem, so do not worry. Do not panic. Everything is going to be alright. Okay, rook c3, I'm going to go knight a1. And I know it looks like a very sad move, very depressing. What is the knight doing in the corner? But it's purely temporary. Like after takes, we're left with an endgame where this bishop is worse than my bishop, and potentially I have an entry in the queen side. But okay, we'll see about that. So takes. This line actually highlights the importance of this knight on a1, obviously, because the b3 pawn would be hanging otherwise. And now let's think. So we're left with this position. What are we doing? I'm going to take my king to c3 first of all. So now this knight is free. And I'm just going to wander here. So I can go b4 with the idea of knight here. I think I'm going to do that. Oh, yeah, I'm not sure. I am not sure. I'm going to go for b4, knight b3. It seems very practical. It's going to take a long time for this knight to go to b6 in order to exploit these two. At least I hope so. So I'm going to put a knight on c5. That's difficult. And let's see what happens. What's the idea here? I'm going to take with this pawn and then go put a king on d4. Okay, this I'm going to go a4. I think taking on c5 was probably the way. But I can understand why. I have 10 seconds left, so I'm going to hurry up here. So I'm going to take. If they take on a4, I get a little bit more chances for like b5, king b4 ideas. I think king c7 was probably better. To not allow b5 with a tempo. You go knight c5, pre-move this. Given that it's kind of a... I mean, it's kind of the only way I can make progress, first of all. Second of all, very natural. I'm going to check. Kind of a nervous check, this one. I'm going to go back. Check. I'm going to take my knight to b8 this time and go knight c6. There's a beautiful line if they go a5. Hopefully we're going to get that. Maybe we won't. If they go king b6, knight e7 is winning. But we do have very little time. The only thing that could stop me now is the internet. This is a beautiful line. Let's see if the internet behaves. Let's promote with check. 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 Take. And this is going to be a very nice, hopefully. Oh no, they did that. There we go. Thank you for the game. That was exciting. Goodness gracious. Let's take a look at that. Closer than I wanted. So we got this. Oh, I said that I was going to read this. You know how I play, so what would you recommend to me? Should I study more openings or multiple openings? Because tactics don't work nowadays. Yeah, I know how you play, and I know that you played the Elephant Gambit, or you used to at least. All of them are so prepared, I don't feel confident while playing. Yeah. Well, I think at some point, you have to make the decision of going for a... I'm not sure what's your FIDE, Gianni. That also affects. I'm not sure what your rating is. Tactics saying that tactics are not the way. I'm not sure about that. I think Maybe puzzles you mean. And there is a difference between like calculation exercises and puzzles. What to say? It's difficult for me to say. I mean, I would have to take a look at your games. Why don't you send one of your games to the Discord? And I can briefly take a look at that. But yeah, I would have to, like, it's very specific. I don't know what to say. It's dangerous. Whatever I say is going to be dangerous for you. Like, if you follow me blindly, you may, I don't know. It may end up worse. I don't know what your exact situation is. But I've seen your repertoire, and definitely your repertoire needs some improving. For example, the Elephant Gambit is nice, or like as a surprise weapon in Blitz, but in Classical, and even if it works in Classical, like eventually it's just going. It's a bomb. It's a time bomb. What am I saying? It's ticking. It's a ticking bomb. It's eventually going to be something you need to replace. I don't play FIDE tournaments for a long time. Yeah, okay. Well, there's some benefits to that. I'm doing that myself, actually. You can relax a little bit more, and playing online and analyzing your games is a straight way of improving. It is less frequent. I mean, in my games at least, tactics are the 3 out of 5 reasons why games are decided. Like, sometimes I get a completely winning position out of the opening, but because I've been working too much in the opening and not too much in tactics, I just fail to convert it. And then I lose because of tactics. Now let's take a look at this. So f5, yeah, this is incorrect. So far everything has been very normal, but black should have gone f6 according to the engine. But f5, we did the right thing by not engaging with any of the en passant lines. Knight b4 is played. According to the engine, a5 was better, threatening knight b4 in a much better version. The knight b4 directly happened, takes, bishop d2. Once again, we chose the right way of playing. King f2 is playable, but after a5, yeah, okay, it's fine. It's playable. What is white threatening? Bishop d2 either way. Yeah, it's very similar to what happened in the game. Like, what happened in the game is absolutely fine. This is the best, according to the engine. And then we traded. Queen a5 was wrong. Yeah, bishop e7 would have been a little bit more resilient, according to the engine. Not for a lot, though. And here we went right, h3. So if we go rook hc1 right away, eventually we have to play h3. So we decided to get rid of h3 as a whole. Like, sorry, knight g4 ideas as a whole. And then we go b3, which is not what the engine liked. Like, the engine wants a4, sorry. With the idea of bishop b5. But okay, b3 is a kind of a neutral move. And then g4 is not the top engine move. a4 is the top engine move. But g4 is, yeah, good. Like, I think it's the 4th or the 3rd best. And then g6 was kind of required. The engine says knight d8 right away, but I guess, okay, yeah. The knight is heading to e6. Okay. And g5? g5 would have actually given black chances. So I can see myself definitely going for g5, so dangerous. Yeah, after g takes f5, e takes f5, we can go knight g1, knight e6, knight e2, which I'm not sure if I could have found. But I guess he has the clear idea of defending these 2 pawns this way, and yeah, I mean, we still have a space advantage. These 2 pawns are weak, but okay, more this one than that one. I think this one is less than a weakness. Okay, well, g6 happened and then we went g5, and yeah, this didn't help us. We should have gone a4 according to the engine. We should have kept the tension all of this time. Wow. We're sacrificing. Wow, okay. There are some cool lines with the sacrifice of the pawn on f4. But okay, we went g5. Let's just finish this game. And h5 is correct. Rook h2 is fine. h6 is kind of fine, although rook h1. Knight a5. Bishop c2 would have been better. I was a little bit scared of knight a5, I must admit. That's why I went h6. And yeah, it's like my advantage has kind of evaporated a little bit. Black can go a6 here. But b5 gives me some chances. And this is kind of the time trouble part of the game. So rook c7, knight c2, rook hc8. All of this is very logical. No criticism there. Rook hc1 is correct, although the engine already likes knight a1, which wouldn't transpose, but we would have b4 now. Claiming that, well, okay, making the most of knight c4's blunder. And if black has to go knight b7, this is a much better version, right? So, yeah, knight e1 would have been a tricky move. I regret not having found that. Now, rook c3 is not the best, but it's a very easy move to make because it puts pressure on b3. It looks like it's squeezing, but black should have played king e8 with the idea of, yeah, I guess slowly preparing things. a6, even rook c3 now is a better version. But for some reason with the king on f7, it's a little bit more, it's a little bit scarier. So there's no need for black to go for immediate action. They can prepare things and then go for rook c3. And yeah, apparently king b2 is better than king d2. I have no idea why. Wow, okay. So the idea is, the explanation being, king d2 doesn't defend b3, but king b2 does. So now white can go knight c2, the only move that puts serious pressure on black, according to the engine. And bishop e8 is the only move? What? What if king c7? Okay, I don't understand anything. Knight b4 is winning? This is +4 almost. What is happening? Oh, I see, I think. Wow, that's so deep. Look at this. Bishop takes f5 is a threat. And I knew that these were threats because the ideas of g6 and promotion are always there. But this is so deep. I mean, there's so, like, you're literally, all of these pawn chain is being undermined by purely tactics. Like knight takes d5 is an idea, bishop f5. Like all of these pawns are undermined. Indirectly or directly. Wow. This is winning. What a move. But yeah, we got this. b4 is correct, but now it's equal. Yeah, after king d2, it's equality. Because I can't go knight c2 anymore. Actually, the engine is so desperate that it tries it either way. But unfortunately, it's not working as well as before. After knight b4, there's still bishop e8, which was holding before. But practically speaking, that's my way of kind of saving every single time. Black is the one that has to find all of these moves. For instance, after knight c5, black has only one way of equalizing, and that's knight takes c5. But I guess that they were scared after something like this. It looks very scary. I mean, you have to be constantly aware of bishop e2, bishop h5 ideas. For example, bishop c8, bishop e2. Let's say you fall asleep. Bishop h5 is immediately winning. Because there's bishop takes g6, and if you take, there's g6. So my opponent didn't want any of that, but yeah. Understandable. And now a4 we play. This is the only way to win. But now we get to open things up, and there's kind of a route, a path for that king, my king on c3 to enter the game, and that's b5, king b4, which is what happened in the game. And yeah, it's working. Knight a6. We repeated once. My opponent declined the repetition. Pretty understandable, given that I was struggling in time. I was gonna go knight b8. But king d7 made things better. Now knight c6 is the only way to win. Because knight a6 would be a repetition. And yeah, there's this very nice trick of b takes a6. So a6 is essentially the same thing. a7, and this is why you don't want, this is the worst piece you can ever have. Like, obviously not having a piece on b7 is better than having a knight on b7. It's a very typical motive. Every single time you see a knight on b7, and there's a pawn in the a file, or in whatever the equivalent is for each side of the symmetrical chessboard, you have to watch out for tricks like this. a7, like, it's a cool move. It's like ignoring, like, you would never expect a7. Like, you're always calculating takes, right? But a7, and there's nothing to stop that pawn. And yeah, thank you for the game. And wow, amazingly, that took the whole stream. In one casual tournament, I was completely winning, like 2 pawns up, but suddenly I see Ghost on board and threw it away, and it affected so much that after that I lost another 2 games. And yeah, Well, that sounds like me all the time. Yeah, I completely understand that. Well, first of all, you have to understand that you're gonna lose tons of games, but it's more difficult when you grow up because you're a little bit more aware of, well, the money you're putting in, the time, like you're studying at the same time, so just try to enjoy it. But yeah, this is like very generic advice. I would have to take a look at your games, Jenny. Have you sent it already? I can use the remaining 5 minutes checking out your game. Discord. I'm gonna turn off the engine. No, you haven't sent anything. You don't have it right now. Okay. Okay. Well, send them on the Discord whenever you have them. But yeah, chess is hard. I don't know what to say. I'm also maybe not the best person to ask because yeah, it's painful, but okay, I can tell you for sure that you somehow keep in contact with it in a very, like in whatever works for you economically or time-wise. For instance, I couldn't bear the idea of playing and having like keeping an eye on how much I was spending in terms of accommodation and like entry fee, travel, and all of these things. But yeah, once again, like I'm not sure if my advice is applying to you. Like I would have to, yeah, it's difficult to know through a screen. But yeah, do whatever works for you. Like if you think it's sucking too much of your time, then do very little but very valuable work. One rapid game, very well analyzed. And even if you don't have time for that, like you can also do something like a chess composition, something fun to keep your consistency at a very kind of minimal time expense, but keeps your love for the game alive. And if you're thinking about it and kind of calculating on or exercising in some way, puzzles, chess compositions, looking at games, then slowly but surely you should make progress. And sometimes, like the truth is, sometimes people don't make progress because it's other things get in the way. That's the crude reality. But you can only hope. I mean, you can, yeah. If you're enjoying it, that it doesn't seem like such a waste. Either way, got very philosophical there. Thank you for no problem. Hopefully that was something. Thanks everyone for watching. Hopefully that was instructive to some extent, and I will see you tomorrow. That last game was crazy. I'm gonna take a deeper look actually. But yeah, thanks everyone. See you tomorrow potentially.